One of the questions we get a lot on Muscle Car of the Week is, what's the fastest car we've driven? And although we do have the ability to drive the cars that we feature from the Brothers Collection in our Muscle Car of the Week episodes, unfortunately we don't have the resources to bring them all to a drag strip and test them all to determine the fastest quarter-mile time. But there were a lot of magazines back in the day that did drag strip test muscle cars when they were new. So on this episode, we thought it'd be kind of fun to look back at the top 10 quickest cars of 1970 as recorded by some of the magazines back in 1970 or 1969. And we can show you some recent footage that we shot from our episodes of Muscle Car of the Week. So occupying the number 10 spot of the 10 quickest recorded muscle cars from 1970 is a 1970 Dodge Challenger RT. And the car they tested in Carcraft magazine in November of 1969 had a 440 cubic inch V8 making 390 horsepower. And they were able to get that sucker to go on the track in 13.62 seconds at 104.28 miles an hour to land the number 10 spot. Now remember, this quarter-mile time is as recorded by Carcraft magazine back in 1970. I'm not saying that these cars could go any quicker or any slower than this, but if you consider back in the day, the car was new, it probably had a factory-type tune, it was running on bias ply tires, so a 1362 at 104 is a pretty solid number. And in our case, we featured a similar 1970 Dodge Challenger, but this one had a 426 Hemi in our episode number 164 of Muscle Car of the Week. Ford fans should be excited because a 1970 Ford Torino with a 429 Super Cobra jet landed in the number 9 slot of the quickest magazine test of 1970. That big Torino had a 391 gear and a 3-speed automatic transmission, and Superstock magazine got one to turn a 1362 at 105.9 miles an hour back in their March of 1970 issue. We featured a very cool 429 Super Cobra Jet Torino on a Muscle Car of the Week episode. You can look that up in episode number 16. In the number 8 slot of the top 10 quickest from 70 is a 1970 Chevelle SS 454 LS6 car. And this car actually appears 3 times in the top 10 because we weren't going for the top 10 quickest cars, we were looking at the top 10 quickest recorded quarter-mile times. And this particular car was done in Superstock magazine. Of course, the LS6 is the 450 horsepower, 454 cubic inch V8. And with a 3-speed automatic and a 331 gear, it clicked off a 1355 at 104 miles per hour. We featured numerous 1970 Chevelle LS6s in the Brothers Collection. You can see a very cool one in episode 182. All right, well, if you were a subscriber of High Performance Cars magazine back in May of 1970, you would have seen our number 7 car be featured. This is a 1970 Plymouth HEMICUDA convertible, a convertible of all things. Grabbed the number 7 spot, ripping off a quarter-mile time of 1345 at 105 miles an hour. Now the convertibles, most people know as being a little bit less stiff and a little heavier than a hardtop. And people ask us a lot saying, hey, you know, why would you drag race a convertible because of those factors? Well, these guys at High Performance Cars pointed out the reason is because they were still fast. We did a couple features on 70 HEMICUDA convertibles here on Muscle Car of the Week. You'll see a neat one in episode 161. The guys at Hot Rod magazine flogged a 1970 Chevelle LS6 454 car into our number 6 spot. They were able to use a 4-speed version with a 411 rear gear to click off a 1344 at 108.17 miles per hour. That is the fastest trap speed of any of the cars in the top 10, although not the quickest. But that tells you that even with a 411 rear gear, This thing was really pushing hard at the big end of the track, as the guys from Hot Rod found out in 1970. In the number 5 slot, the authors at Motor Trend magazine caused some serious controversy with an Apollo White 1970 Buick GSX 455 Stage 1 car. They clicked off a 1338 at 105 mile an hour quarter-mile time from the big Buick. And what was controversial about that is they said that that was the fastest car they tested in 1970. So of all the muscle cars Motor Trend tested in 1970, HEMICUDAs, CHEVELLEs, any of the Pontiacs, they say the Buick was the fastest one. Pretty cool. That was powered by the 455, makes 510 foot-pounds of torque, and we did a really cool feature on one in Muscle Car of the Week, episode number 45. And that controversy goes on today because Motor Trend called it a Hemi killer. And on drag strips throughout the USA, even today, the battle goes on between the HEMICUDAs and the Buick Stage 1s. In our number 4 slot, a 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner with a 426 Hemi, 425 horsepower car making 490 foot-pounds of torque, and a 3-speed automatic with a 410 gear was clocked to 1334 at 107.5 miles per hour by Superstock magazine. Great car, lightweight car, makes lots of power, obviously goes very fast. Now interestingly, we don't have any footage of a 70 426 Hemi Roadrunner, but we shot footage of a 69.5 Roadrunner A12 car, which is the 440 car and the 3 barrel setup. You can see that one in episode number 152. Making its 3rd appearance in the top 10 in our number 3 slot is the 1970 Chevelle LS6 454. Once again, this one has a 355 gear and a 4-speed manual transmission. So each of the 3 cars in our top 10 are all powered by a slightly different drivetrain. The 355 4-speed seems to be the winner at this point, running a 1312 at 107.1 miles per hour as tested in the November 1969 issue of CarCraft magazine. That's fast, but it's still only number 3. Number 2 in our quickest top 10 magazine road tests of 1970 is a 70 Dodge Challenger SE powered by a 426 Hemi. This one was tested by CarCraft magazine, and they were able to get a 4-speed version with a 410 rear gear to run down the quarter-mile in 13.10 at 107.12 miles per hour. And that's screaming. This car is a very neat car. We featured one similar to it in episode number 86 of Muscle Car of the Week. And the moment you've all been waiting for, or the moment that many of you have known about since 1970, the number 1 car in our quickest top 10 magazine reports of 1970, a 70 Plymouth HEMICUDA. Yes, the 426 Hemi is again the king of the hill. This particular CUDA was featured in CarCraft magazine of November 1969. A lot of good road tests in that November 69 issue. You might be able to find one on eBay. Anyway, that car had a 355 gear and a 4-speed, and they were able to get 1310 at 107 miles an hour out of a 70 Plymouth HEMICUDA. And we have a feature of a 70 CUDA, kind of similar car, episode 169 of Muscle Car of the Week. Now we know that these cars with some simple tuning tricks and better tires can run a lot faster, but again, these are published reports of what these cars ran back in 1970. We welcome your feedback on our YouTube channel or Facebook page or our website, and please subscribe because you never know what we'll come up with next week on Muscle Car of the Week.